I killed them. I killed them all. They're dead. Every single one of them. And not just the men, but the women. And the children, too.
So the time has finally come. After weeks of watching, reading, and reviewing, I have finally reached the end of Jujutsu Kaisen. At least for now. We have been following Yuji Itadori's quest to find his perfect death, as well as seeing the Jujutsu sorcery community get flipped upside down by the schemes of villains. As for today, it is time to cover the aftermath of the Shibuya incident and the beginning of the next major threat to the world. So I present to you guys my review of Jujutsu Kaisen's Itadori Extermination and Perfect Preparation arcs. Our boy Yuta is back, baby! And it turns out he has been hired to be the one to carry out the killing of Yuji Itadori. Oh dear. So things are actually kind of depressing during this beginning arc because everybody just got done having to fight for their lives and we're already doing the exact same thing again. I was pleasantly surprised to see that Yuji and Chozo were hanging out together like brothers, kind of just doing their own thing, hiding away from the rest of society. Also, I made a prediction in one of my earlier videos that the Zenin family would become like a major focus of the story at some point later on. And it turns out I was right because the Zenin clan and a couple of those other members very much are important for what happens in the next couple of chapters. So for example, we learn that Naobito did indeed die after the injuries he got from Dagon and Jogo. So since the head of the Zenin family is dead, there needs to be a new one appointed. And much to the dismay of a lot of those assholes, it is actually Megumi Fushiguro that is appointed the new head of the family. Right on, Megumi, you do what you gotta do to turn a new leaf for that family. Second thought, let's move on. So naturally, one of the Zenin guys, I think his name was Naowa, he goes looking for Megumi because he wants to take him out and then claim the head of the family for himself, but he runs into Yuji and Chozo instead. Which means we have Yuji and Chozo having to team up to fight against Naowa and Yuta. By the way, while I'm thinking of it, that Naowa guy, he reminds me a lot of that really bullyish Class B member from My Hero Academia. I forget his name. There's probably a picture of him here. Am I the only one that thinks that? But anyways, as expected, this is a little bit of a one-sided affair, but Yuji and Chozo do put up a good fight. Yuji ends up having to go up against Yuta, and he actually does manage to impress him quite a bit. Also, props to Chozo for almost taking out Naowa. I mean, he didn't get the finishing blow up by the time Yuta came back and finished them off anyway, but I mean, you know, it is what it is. But funny story, it turns out that Yuta actually had a plan of his own to save Yuji. So it turns out that before the Shibuya incident happened, Gojo had come and visited Yuta and warned him of some stuff that was probably going to happen. So Yuta comes up with a relatively clever way of confirming and guaranteeing that Yuji was going to die, but not die. Loopholes. What this means is that Yuji and his friends are now able to kind of slide under the radar of the official members of the Jujutsu community, operate on their own without really being detected. So while this was a relatively short arc, it had a lot of great action chapters. It did a really great job of developing Yuji's character in this post-Shibuya world. It fleshed out the lore of the world with the Zenin family and the officials that run the Jujutsu community. It was just all great stuff. Like, highly recommend reading these chapters. A little bit of context for future viewers. At the time of this recording, Jujutsu Kaisen did go on hiatus after chapter 152. So all of the thoughts I'm presenting to you guys right now is me having read through chapter 152, but not beyond. A lot of what these last few chapters were all about was gearing up for the big showdown known as the Calling Game. This Hunger Games-esque showdown has been announced, which means all the Jujutsu sorcerers in Japan, and even some non-Jujutsu sorcerers getting caught up in the whole thing, now have to battle to the death. There's a little bit more nuance to that. They spend a lot of time like going into the fine details of the rules in the chapters. So if you guys really want to know, I'm just going to say go read it for yourself. But of course, one of the punishments for declining to join in the game is death. So there's not really any other option but to participate. So the plan they try to come up with is we need to get into the game and then find a way to shut it down while participating in the game. How they're supposed to do that? That's a great question. In fact, it's such a great question, they have to go visit Master Tengen to get the answer to that. So they go to Jujutsu High, visit the school, and... oh dear God, what have they done to you? Okay, so a little side tangent. I'm personally not a fan that they showed Master Tengen at all. But if you're gonna show this like immortal ancient being, could you make him not so lame? I mean, for goodness sake, half of the appeal of Master Tengen comes from the fact that he's really mysterious and we don't know a whole lot about him. And then he's just here. He looks goofy. He acts kind of goofy. I mean, I appreciate that he has a sense of humor, but we're not here to talk about how Master Tengen looks, alright? We got some other important stuff to talk about. And bear with me, because there's a lot of information that gets dumped here. So Tengen reveals that Noritoshi Kamo, aka Fake Geto, actually goes by a different name, that being Kenjaku. And shoot, this guy is actually building an impressive resume of identities, so props to him, I guess. Tengen also speculates that the purpose behind the calling game is to actually condition humankind into adopting or preparing them for an evolution. Because Tengen suspects that because of the failed merging years ago during the incident where Toji attacked Geto and Gojo, now he's more cursed spirit than human, which means he could be susceptible to Kenjaku's ability to manipulate curses. Tengen says he's not 100% certain if that's what's going to happen, and even if that is what's going to happen, he's not even sure how or the exact means that Kenjaku would go about doing that, so we're just kind of running off of speculation right now. But anyways, I think that covers most of that plot line. Let's get back to the Zenin family drama. So we find out that Maki is alive. And she is on her way to the Zenin warehouses in order to gather some weapons that she and her friends can use for the culling game. But of course, her family of assholes have to be a bunch of jerks and try to put a stop to her by berating her, insulting her, and then eventually locking her up in a pit of curses, forcing her to stay there and fight for her life. What a bunch of great people. And they do all of this despite the fact that she had written permission from the new head of the household, Megumi. So then something that has been on the back of our minds comes to the forefront to kind of propel the next few sequences. Earlier in the story, Maki's sister Mai had said something about twins being two halves of a full person, and in their case, Maki is the one that got more physical strength, while Mai is the one that got more proficiency with cursed energy. So we get this emotional scene where Mai and Maki are stuck in this pit together. There's no real out, so Mai decides to sacrifice herself to unlock Maki's full potential. I read through this chapter twice to see if I could really understand what was happening here, and it still kind of eluded me, but the end result is that now Maki is a pure, unadulterated badass. So Maki escapes her imprisonment and proceeds to just single-handedly wipe the floor with every warrior of the Zenin family. Can I just say, this is now easily the new #1 entry for top 10 most satisfying sequences in anime and manga. While it was a very rapid, explosive growth in her power, I'm honestly okay with the way it was portrayed. I earlier compared Maki to Toji, and while that wasn't a 100% accurate comparison, that same comparison does get used by various members of the Zenin family when they see the new and improved Maki wreaking havoc. And that's kind of where the story ends for now. Thankfully, Akutami is feeling a lot better, and there are plans to have the manga continue starting in August. Which means we won't have to wait very long for the culling game to actually get started. A full month and 4 videos later, I have to say, Jujutsu Kaisen has been a wonderful experience. It came out swinging immediately, and it didn't let up. It was just going full speed ahead the entire way through. While I don't have a lot of experience with other anime and manga to really compare Jujutsu Kaisen to, I have to say it really did exceed all the expectations I had for it going in. This will be one that I do keep my eyes closely on going forward throughout the weeks as new chapters coming out. So I do want to ask you guys, what do you think of Jujutsu Kaisen? How would you rate it in your own mind? Also, do you prefer the anime or the manga? Leave your answers in the comment down below, or for extra brownie points, leave a comment in my Gilded server with your answer. There's a link to that server down in the description below. But all good things must come to an end eventually, and thus, this will be the end of my Jujutsu Kaisen blind review series. Now that doesn't mean I won't do Jujutsu Kaisen videos again in the future. In fact, I probably will. I'm not sure what those are going to be just yet, but I'm sure inspiration will come to me in time. For now though, I think it is time we return to the crazy world of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. My blind review for JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Part 6, Stone Ocean, should be dropping sometime next week. So if you don't want to miss that, make sure you hit the subscribe button, ring the bell, do the YouTube things. We're closing in on 1,000 subs. You guys are amazing. I appreciate all the love and support you guys have been showing. Keep on being awesome. Until the next time though, I have been LootingKyle, and remember, be kind to others, and have yourselves a wonderful rest of your day. Take care.